My name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about the dismissive avoidant and what their internal experience is as they go through a breakup, specifically if they are the ones broken up with. Okay, so this is based on a question from AM inside of our school. And before I dive into all this content, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you're getting a lot of value. I would so appreciate it. And also, please know that we are doing a sale to support anybody who's going through uncertainty and wants to connect with a community, wants to do deep work on themselves while they're in a time of isolation so they can take something away from this time and at least come out having grown and navigated this as effectively as possible. So we're offering scholarship options if you reach out to our team at info@personaldevelopmentschool.com, and we are also offering a 25% off coupon code for our entire YouTube community. The coupon code is with you. It's all one word, and I'll put a link in the description box below and also in this video. So let's talk about it. A couple things. So first and foremost, when the dismissive avoidant, okay, let me backtrack actually to the very beginning. Dismissive avoidants have abandonment wounds. They usually just don't know because it's almost deep enough and happens early enough that it becomes like unconscious. And it's in these like competing needs with them deriving a sense of relief from having time alone. So let me explain this. We have like our unconscious mind, which are sort of like the depths of our subconscious mind, like the deeper layers, the deepest parts. Now, these are where like a lot of our autonomic nervous system runs from, a lot of our, or at least interacts with our unconscious mind. This is also where we have like deep memories that we can't necessarily retrieve. Our subconscious contains more easily retrievable things. So for example, if I'm sitting and something triggers me, let's say, and I'm like, ooh, I feel bad, I might be able to go, okay, why do I feel bad? What meaning am I giving to the situation? And maybe I'll go, oh, I'm making this mean that I'm not good enough, or I'm not loved, or I'm not worthy, or whatever it is. And I might be able to check in even with like the core wound sheet that we have and look at the core wounds and feel what resonates. And the act of doing that is the act of using your conscious mind to pull up and retrieve subconscious information. And once we bring things into the light of our conscious mind, it gets really easy to navigate, to work with, to work through, to not attach to not allow, to just keep getting programmed in on autopilot. Like a lot of really powerful things come out of that. So if this is what's happening, right? Sometimes so if you look at it that way from like sort of the top down, like we have our conscious mind, then we have our subconscious where we have information that's retrievable, like, oh, what stories am I telling? What meaning am I giving? What core wounds are showing up for me? And even things like, what do I need in this moment? You're not necessarily consciously aware that you have an unmet need when you feel distressed or anxious. But as you start to understand your needs and what they are and how they work, then it's easy to retrieve that. And emotions are actually your subconscious mind trying to get your attention and wake you up to recognize that you're either telling a painful story or you have unmet needs so that you can adapt or create change. And then as a byproduct of that, our emotional responses calm down. They alleviate because we've done the work to help equilibrate and show up for them. So emotions are beautiful guides that are meant to be recognized and inquired about and felt. So when we look at how all of that information relates to the dismissive avoidant, what happens is they carry abandonment wounds that are so young usually and so consistent and so sort of under the radar that they're often more almost like unconscious level wounds. And then what happens is if a dismissive avoidant person gets emotionally neglected for long periods of time repetitively enough, they just learn to like deeply repress at usually quite a young age for those people who are more intensely dismissive avoidant, not like secure that turn dismissive avoidant after a long marriage in their 50s or something like that. So usually what happens is they go, well, trying to be vulnerable and getting my emotional connection needs met is not working and it doesn't feel good. So I'm just gonna like repress my needs for that altogether. And in combination with that, I also recognize that when I'm alone and I'm not needing emotional connection from others, it creates some kind of relief. So then they actually build in positive associations to being alone, and they can become quite anxious about regulating themselves through being alone. But then what's interesting and what takes place is they still have an abandonment wound deeper beneath the surface. And this is part of what creates these ideas that something's wrong with me because of some of their experience of emotional abandonment. This is what creates this idea that it's unsafe to be vulnerable, because to some degree, they associate that with emotional abandonment. So when a dismissive avoidant is broken up with, especially if they're, so, it's different if it's like 3 weeks into a relationship, but if it's been a serious relationship and you've made it past the dating phase into the honeymoon phase, there's some degree of commitment and care there. And so when they get broken up with, absolutely, they experience their abandonment wounds. And then you'll see a couple things. Either they'll push you back really hard, okay? And that pushback really hard is designed there to sometimes you'll see them shut down and get so cold. And it's because that's their way that they've learned how to cope. They've programmed themselves from a very young age that that's the way to feel better, and that's what creates relief. And so that program comes out so hard. Just like, if aggression was something for somebody else, or violence, to stay safe or whatever it is. Not saying any of that stuff is good, but just, whatever our coping mechanisms are, obviously are going to come out tenfold during times of pain or suffering. So that's number one for sure what's happening. Now, AM also goes in here to say he would sort of, this person, her dismissive avoidant or his dismissive avoidant, I just see the initials AM, was sort of like going back and forth. Like then would sometimes, he wouldn't ask you to stay or chase you, but then try to say things to like get a reaction, like, oh, I want to do this or I want to do that. And so they're sort of in this intermediary period. And she was saying like he would say things that were designed to sort of get a reaction from me, and then he'd say, sorry, I didn't mean that. But at the same time, he would sort of show up in the relationship to try to participate even though he was broken up with. So what that's a sign of is like dismissive avoidance. They'll shut down. Then it's like this massive like wall to climb to try to overcome those feelings of being shut down, to then participate in a relationship and try to make things work. And so sometimes in those situations, I will see dismissive avoidance become sort of passive aggressive and try to make remarks to see if you care, because it's their way from behind their huge wall of trying to poke at you and be like, oh, you did react, which means you do care, which means I might be safe to open up. And so dismissive avoidants aren't really ones to test very often, but they will test a lot in times like this. And sometimes in the really early stages of relationships, if they find themselves developing feelings more quickly than they're used to. And so my advice is that, you cannot be in a relationship with somebody who's not willing to do the work as well. It doesn't sound like the healthiest dynamic. You could, of course, go to the person and say, if you're willing, if you want to try, though I don't think this person does, but if you wanted to work something out, you could say, this is what I want. This is what I need. I don't want any of the games. I don't want any remarks. That's a non-negotiable. If you want to participate and show up and do the work as well, here's exactly what I'm needing from you. I want to know exactly what's happening inside of you and from your perspective. And if we put it all on the table, then maybe we can strategize and see if it's possible to work through these things. And if the person shows up extremely well and brainstorms and wants to do the work and all these things, which I know for some of you watching this, you'll be like, no, they don't do that. But they do. I've seen it. We're starting a PDS Student of the Month program, and there's some really amazing dismissive avoidants inside of the school that have shown up and done the work tenfold and been incredible. And I've seen so many clients in my practice over the years. Is it rarer than other attachment styles? Yes, of course, because dismissive avoidants are trying so hard to protect and repress their feelings. But we're all human beings, and some people will show up and do that work. So we have to see that, like, if that's what we want to do, instead of just trying to repress what we want and cut ties and move on and then wander around with regrets, if we really want, just go have a conversation and see how it goes. You might be surprised. And if the person doesn't show up, or doesn't, even if they only show up this much, maybe you're like, you know what, that's not worth my time and energy. And then you get to make that healthy, clear decision. And again, you get to walk away guilt and regret free. So that's a little bit of what, so the one other thing I'll add in here actually is that, yes, dismissive avoidance post-breakup, they can feel abandoned. They will shut down their feelings. They can sometimes have that abandonment creep out from the unconscious and sort of become more emotionally available to them, and they'll notice. They can experience a lot of pain. For some dismissive avoidants, where physical abandonment was a big thing, like they were actually literally abandoned, that abandonment can come on really strong for short periods of time, and then they can really push away because they associate, oh, you're the person causing me to feel all this pain, when in fact it might be a combination of you as the person and their stored emotional associations underneath. So they do feel abandonment, they can feel pain. Sometimes they will rebound quickly as a strategy to avoid pain. Maybe I'll do a separate video about that. But that is some of the inner world and what's taking place. So I hope this all makes sense. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're getting a lot of value out of this channel, and I will see you in the next video.